So you see this over the weekend? Chris Wallace challenging Democratic Congressman Xavier Becerra, demanding answers over President Obama's use of executive action. Here is that feisty exchange from Fox News Sunday. Watch.
What is his legal authority to take this action without going back to Congress?
The president has the authority as the executive to implement the laws. If there is a law that says that we will pay a federal contractor money, the president can say, okay, federal contractors, you can't gouge your workers because you're getting taxpayer money to do the work. And so therefore the president can say, at least pay them the federal minimum wage.
But is he implementing the law?
Absolutely he's implementing the law.
Or
the law
is he rewriting the law?
No, he's not rewriting it because he's simply implementing it.
Let's take all of the things that he's done on Obamacare. Congress wrote a law. What gives him the legal authority to rewrite the law?
Because you, as the executive, have the authority and the obligation to make sure laws work, that you act responsibly. If you're going to cross the street, just because you see a green light doesn't mean you cross the street. You look both ways before you cross the street.
Jessica Ehrlich is a former Democratic congressional candidate. Katie Pavlich is a news editor at townhall.com and a Fox News contributor. Welcome, Jessica and Katie. Good to have you both here. You know, you look at this question, and at the heart of it, Jessica, is that Congressman Becerra is arguing that because he thinks that these were popular changes, that makes them okay.
Well, they're actually what's called here previously by the Supreme Court benevolent suspensions. So there's difficulty really in actually bringing this sort of lawsuit because we've got a case that is down from 1997 from the Supreme Court saying that there has to be a legal standing for these cases to be brought, and that if there are things such as these benevolent suspensions in terms of executive orders, that it doesn't rise to the level where a lawsuit is actually warranted. And that's the situation we have here, where it's this really, I mean, talk about a frivolous lawsuit and a waste of taxpayer money. You know, if you can't impeach the president, then try to sue him, make this into a huge situation. And unfortunately, I think that's what we're seeing here.
But let me ask you one more question before I go to Katie. Is it not incumbent upon Congress, if they see their legislative power and the responsibilities that are given to them in the Constitution, is it incumbent upon them not to act?
Well, no, I mean, there is obviously, we have balances of powers.
Right.
That's what the, implementation of the executive orders have been. Right. No, absolutely. But there is, in terms of the way that Congress is able to do that, they do it by actually enacting the laws and getting things done in the House of Representatives.
All right, so they enacted the law. They feel that the president changed it. So is it then incumbent upon them to act? Let me go to Katie because I want to get her in here as well. Go ahead, Katie.
It is incumbent upon them to act, and it is not the president's job to change the law. If the president doesn't like the law, he's supposed to go back to Congress and say, pass a different law or change this law. And let's not forget that President Obama campaigned on this. He said he wanted to work with Congress. We've seen anything but. Just shortly after Speaker Boehner announced the lawsuit, President Obama tweeted out that he's going to go about things he wants to, regardless of whether Congress is on board. And no one is mentioning the fact that the House has passed dozens of pieces of legislation, many of them that President Obama has called on them to pass, and Harry Reid is the one who refuses to bring them up in a Democrat-controlled Senate. And this isn't necessarily just about Republicans stonewalling the president, as he would like everyone to believe. Let's not forget that law professor Jonathan Turley has said that President Obama has repeatedly overstepped his executive authority, and the Supreme Court has shown by striking down a number of President Obama administration lawsuits that he really has stepped over his bounds on a lot of different issues throughout the federal government.
I mean, imagine, Jessica, if the shoe were on the other foot, if a Republican president had overseen a huge legislation that changed a sixth of the U.S. economy and then proceeded to change it dozens and dozens and dozens of times, wouldn't you want Democrats to contest that to make sure that he had not overstepped his bounds?
Well, it's definitely the situation with, I think a lot of the changes you're referring to are part of these sort of benevolent implementations, and that's well within, the bounds, I think, of what the president is able to do.
But that's what they're trying to establish, whether or not that's the case, whether or not he had the right to do it or not. So I don't understand how you could call that a frivolous act to determine whether or not the executive branch is acting constitutionally. How could that be a frivolous act?
Because of the way that
Jessica brought up this.
Hold on, Jessica, go ahead, respond, and then we'll go to Katie.
Yeah, in terms of like being in a frivolous lawsuit, you have to have an injury. There has to be, in order to bring a case in any court, you need to show that there is a specific injury and that you have the standing to bring it.
I don't think we have time in this segment to get into the injuries that Obamacare has caused the economy and the American people with all the changes that the president has made. And the bottom line is that President Obama is not enforcing his own piece of legislation, Obamacare. He's changed it. He's changed it without Congress. And Congress has said, look, we're willing to work with you. It was Republicans who wanted to delay the individual mandate, delay the employer mandate. And now all of a sudden, when it's a popular thing to do, the president is doing it by himself because, after all, he has a pen and a phone. It goes beyond executive power, and it also goes into this idea of what President Obama's own standard for himself is, and that was working with Congress, which he has done the opposite of.
All right, we got to leave it there.
Well,
but it seems that if the president feels that he was within the law, then he shouldn't be at all concerned about this lawsuit. Jessica and Katie, thank you very much for being here today. See you soon.
Thanks, Martha.
You bet.